I'm Steve Johnson. This is my wife, Kim. We're challenged in PowerPoint, but we do run very expensive scientific repair, very expensive scientific machine, but that's challenging us for some reason. So we're glad to be here today. We are Blue Ridge Labs. We're involved in the racing industry. We've been doing fuel and tire testing in the racing industry for 20 years. We're a small family business in Hudson, North Carolina, established in 1990. We are an EPA certified environmental laboratory. We're also certified by the state of North Carolina. That gets asked sometimes if we make a call, what credentials do you have? So we do have credentials showing we are certified and have the ability to perform the analysis. Okay, how we got involved in racing business was with NASCAR. We test their fuel every week, consistent fuel from Sunoco every week. We've been doing that for 20 years for them. And if they have some other things come up, like if you remember when Toyota came into NASCAR, Michael Walter had something in his manifold, we did all the work on that. So that's how we got involved in racing. About 6 years ago, we got involved doing tire testing. And actually, it's one of the most fun things I've ever done because I like racing. I like talking to racers and promoters, so I enjoy that. Tell you that I don't like racers that good because they get ugly with me sometimes. I like promoters. But we're going to tell you a little bit about some of the things we've learned through the years. Some of you may know this. Some of you are our customers. We've dealt with you about the things that can help you run a successful tire program. One thing we learned dealing with people on this is the most important thing you can do is have your proper rules in place so nobody can come back and say, you didn't do this right, you didn't sample right, whatever. What's the first thing that happens if the tire's bad? You guys will say, I ain't done nothing to that tire. Or something happened between here and the lab. That tech man never has like me. You know, something's going on like that too. I'm sure y'all have heard that. But if you have your rules properly in place, it makes your life a whole lot easier. Okay, going back here, a few things we came up with. State your sampling process and how samples will be handled. In other words, when you say, this is how we're going to do it, these are the cars we're going to sample. Are we going to sample the winner, top qualifier? Or are we going to have one series, they sample the winner, they sample the top qualifier. The winner pulls a peel, whatever position he pulls gets sampled. Top qualifier pulls a peel, and whatever position he pulls gets sampled. So nobody ever knows if he gets sampled or not. He has very seldom problem with tires. If you can go back one, Kim. Okay, one of the things, how many samples will be taken, who will be sampled? It's just what we talked about. Are you going to do one a race? Or are you going to do 4 a race? Or however many? But the thing that's going to make your life easier is being consistent race to race and doing that. Okay. Here's some of the ideas that have come up over the years to help avoid problems for you as far as tire sampling goes. One, have the race team sample their own tire with their own grooving iron. Because what they're going to say, if you bring your grooving iron out, is something was on your iron from a previous tire that contaminated my tire. Well, that's not going to happen. We have had grooving irons at our facility. We have sampled very, very hot tires, gone and done a clean tire. There was no transfer contamination because that grooving iron gets so hot, it's going to burn off whatever's on there. It's not going to transfer. But if you have them use their own grooving iron to do it, what can they say to you? Have the team place the sample into a sample container. This is called a sample container. We will send you if you want them. I've actually got some boxes of them up here if anybody wants them while we're here today. This has a Teflon coated seal. This is an EPA environmental sample container. It's what we call EPA clean. It's certified that nothing's in that container when you get it. They need to sample about 4 or 5 inch long strips, put it in here, seal it up. You can take a sticky label, seal it the top to the bottle if you want to. Okay. Have the team place it into an evidence bag if you use evidence bags. Here's an example of an evidence bag. This was actually sent to us from one of the tire companies. We're getting benchmark samples. They put it in here, seal it, they can sign it, Then we get it to the lab, I take a knife, I cut it right here, take it out, and then we can state on the letter we'll provide to you that it was received intact and sealed, and no tampering has taken place between leaving the racetrack and getting to us. And properly document, like I said, I'll have a representative sign, it's good. Properly document the type of tire you have. If it's a SD 12 or it's a 1350 or whatever, document that. And also the day code of the tire can become important. We had a situation a couple of years ago, we got a tire in on a $20,000 race. It did not match the benchmark. Okay, in further discussions with in talking to people, we found out that possibly the tire company had made a change in that tire since the last benchmark we got. We contacted them, they sent us the new benchmark, and we were saying, no, this guy was good because we got a new benchmark, and we did it off the day code of the tire. So that can, if you got something that's in question, that day code can be very valuable in helping us find out whether the tire is truly bad or not. Hoosier and American Racer are both very good at getting us benchmarks. They've been very good to work with, and it might spread out your analysis a little bit longer, but we would rather be right when it comes to you, where you don't have problems, or if they do have a problem with the tire, we can back you up completely and say, yes, we got the benchmark from that day code tire, and it is good or it is bad. Be consistent in your sampling process, and be sure your personnel know and follow your procedure. We have been involved in a couple of appeals hearings. We've gone to some personally, some have done over the phone. We have never had our data questioned into the appeal. But we'll show you some examples of it later, and you can see what we're talking about. What it usually comes down is to, they didn't do it the way they did last week. They didn't follow the proper procedure you have written down. That's what gets you in trouble, is they get you on technicality at times. So if you follow your procedure, your people follow your procedure, you'll protect yourself a lot. Be sure the teams understand your rules and what will happen if the tire doesn't match the benchmark. Okay. If the tire does not match the benchmark, be sure they understand that you or your chosen committee will enforce the preset penalties. Consider penalties that aren't so aggressive that they are difficult to enforce. What we found out with that, if you say, okay, your tire's bad, you're banned for a year. Okay, you're going to tick somebody off. This guy may pull people to your racetrack. You don't want him to be gone for a year. The thing you should consider is, okay, first offense, $500 fine, 2-race suspension or whatever. Second offense, maybe go out for the year, or maybe have 3 strikes and you're out. Thing is, if it keeps on happening, you got a problem you have to face. So that's why, and what we do, we want you guys to make money. We want y'all to have a good show. And if you kick a guy out, for a year, he may have 500 fans that don't come for a year. So that's just one thing to consider. And these are just suggestions that we're making to you based on people we've dealt with all across the country, because we do this work from North Carolina to California, and we're just bringing some of the better ideas in that we have learned. Is your decision final, or you allow an appeal? Okay, some say, yes, once you sign a paper saying, I agree to your rules, my decision's final. And we were just involved down here in Charlotte on an appeal for a major series a couple of weeks ago. And they paid us to come down, never called us into the room. They looked, the Bill's board looked at our data. No, the tire's definitely bad. What it come down to, tech man doesn't like me, and the tire's tampered with after you took it. That's what it came down to. And the appeal was upheld. But if you allow an appeal, and you have your appeal process stated, who will be on the committee, or you may have a group of 10 people, you can choose 3 of them to be on the committee at any certain time. Make sure they understand what your penalties are and what will happen if they do have a bad time. Be sure competitors sign a document stating they understand the sampling process, the decision process, and the consequences that the tire is bad. This will protect you from the threat of lawsuits and from a lot of other headaches. Because if one series, we deal with, when you come to race, every race, you sign a contract saying this is how it's going to be. And if you do that, there you are. And then what are they going to say to you? You got to agree to what you say. And that's just covering yourself because, okay, get people, I'm going to sue you. I've had lawyers, I love it when lawyers call me. I have the most fun with lawyers. This guy called one day, when we do work for you, that data does not get to anybody unless you tell us to send it to them. Okay, I have a lawyer call me and he'll say, I need to get a copy of blah, blah, blah. I said, I didn't do the work for you, and legally I'm bound, but I can't do that. And this lawyer says, well, you don't have to tell me about the legalities of the matter. And I said, well, I must because you knew this before you called me. So I love to play with lawyers and have fun with them. They can't sue me anyway because my contract's with you. I don't have a contract with the racer, so the racer can't sue me whatsoever. All right, we had a tire bad toward the end of the season. Okay, I knew the tire was bad because they told them they were sending the tire to us. Okay, Tuesday, my phone starts ringing. I'm from blah, blah, blah Speedway. Is our tire done yet? Well, I knew it wasn't the guy I was dealing with. Then the guy's mother called. The guy daddy's called and said, y'all did the tire. We hadn't got a report yet. Y'all went to get a report and said, you don't talk to me because you didn't pay for it. You talk to the person who paid me for the report. And so they said, just go. Y'all know the story. Y'all been there. Y'all know how some of these racers do. But one thing, we are legally bound. And this and environmental work and whatever we do, we can't give anybody's data to anybody unless you give us permission to. And if we get somebody calling asking us about tire analysis and we don't know them, we're putting them on hold, we're pulling up that website and seeing if that name is associated with that website. Because we've had racers try to get in through the back door all kinds of ways. I've even had racers go to another track owner and send them in through the track owner, and I think I'm dealing with the track owner. When it comes back around, this guy was hoodooing me trying to get in the back door to make some leeway in his situation. And so when that track owner calls, I'm real worried about dealing with him anymore because I don't know what he's up to. When we get your sample at the lab, I'll tell you a little bit about what happens. Kim will come in on this here in a little bit. When your sample's received at the lab, we have a computer system. We log it into that and it's assigned a system-generated, what we call lab sample ID number. That number will follow the sample throughout the analytical process. In other words, if I get a sample in, we can print labels together, but I always do it with Sharpie so it won't come off. We get a sample in, okay, I write the sample ID number on this bag, pull it out, I write it on the sample container too. That way, we always know what goes back to what bag. We can always trace it for you. If something comes back, we can say, this is the bag that you send in. We have had to send bags back to people to prove they weren't tampered with when we got them at the lab. Like I said, it's recorded on the evidence bag in the sample container. Okay, Kim will come in here in this a little bit. We do an extraction process. We use an extraction fluid, and I'm not going to tell you all the ins and outs of what we use because we've had other people try to take our information to other labs or to people that make these soaps and try to make them to beat our process. So we're very careful about what we give out. But this fluid, what it does, we'll take a piece of rubber, and for instance, we'll take, okay, yeah, we can take a piece of rubber. Those are strips of tires you'll see there in the beaker. And, or like this is a benchmark, we'll put 4 or 5 of these in there, put the fluid in, it will soak. And the fluid's clear when it goes in, but you see it's kind of a golden color on the bottom. That's pulling chemicals out of that rubber. Now when you get a really soaked tire, that liquid will turn black. You can pretty much tell it's going to be bad by the color that fluid turns. One that turns that light color is usually not that bad, that's usually normal. Can you explain a little bit what's going on?
Well, I mean, that's just, that's the extraction process. It's pulling all the chemicals out of that tire. The chemicals that should be, that the tire's made out of, and anything that has been put into it will generally come out.
How long is that?
It sits and extracts for about 20 minutes, and then we filter it and we put it in this vial, and then we just take it and shot on the machine, and then it runs. The process for running is about an hour per sample, and then it'll print out a chromatograph, and I'll show you those in just a few minutes.
And Kim mentioned we filter it. The reason we filter it is because
It's got dirt.
Dirt or something could come off the tire. We don't want that into the material.
And the tires are badly soaked, they'll start coming to pieces in the vinegar, and they'll have like little pieces. So you want to keep that out of your machine.
And this is the machine we work on, and I'm not going to tell you all the pictures about it, but it's a very complicated machine. I'll get the next one again. Okay. When we put it into the machine, we get a graft out. And it shows a graph of the chemical analysis of that tire. Okay, and after that's done, okay, what we get from us? Okay, your report will include a letter stating that the sample was received in good order if it was received in good order. If it comes in, for some reason this is cracked, we'll note that the bottle's cracked
Or
or
if you
broken.
notice that it's tampered, the bag's tampered in any way.
We note that on the letter too. Like I said, acceptance will be noted, and it will include our sample ID, your sample ID, type of tire, and test results in the packet we send to you. Graphs of both the suspect tire you're testing will be in there, and a benchmark graph. So you can compare the two together. That's the easiest way to explain this to people. This is what a clean one looks like. This is what yours looks like. And so
Do you
that's
actually
what
have
the
the ability
bottle.
to overlay those on the same, or do you get two separate?
You have to do
There's
two
two-
separate.
There's two separate, but you can lay them over one another to the
You really
competitor.
can't
He
lay
can
them
see
over
what's
each other
going
like up through the
going
line.
on. Also, if that is sufficient, in most cases, having the graphs there for people. For some reason, some people do, we can do an additional analysis that will actually list the chemicals found in the tire that are not of that tire. And we can do that as well.
So this is, and I'm sorry that's so small, but that's generally what a letter will say. It'll say, the day we did the letter, when we received the sample, it was received in good order, it came in as evidence, it was identified by, and most people use this evidence bag number as their sample number. I don't really want to know whose it is. I don't know these people anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me. But I mean, that just keeps it, pretty,
Third party.
third party-ish, and you can go back to your paperwork and say, this bag number belongs to so-and-so. And so I'll come down here, this will have the lab sample number, this will have your ID number, that'll have the type of tire, and then I'll state, does it conform to the benchmark, does it not conform to the benchmark? And that'll be like your summary letter. This is not showing up good. This is a sample of a clean tire, and the graph is,
It doesn't look like that.
the graph is not doing good. But generally,
Wait, we
there's
might have a graph over here.
there's one peak that shows up here, and then there's a couple of others, and that one looks similar. Let me see if the next one shows. I don't know if we turned off the lights, if it would show better.
It's like a heart monitor.
Yeah, it is kind of like that.
Yeah, I can stand here and hold these if you want me to. Tell me which one you want me to hold.
Let's see, this is the next one we're doing. And sometimes these don't translate as well. You might want to look over just a little bit, but
Okay.
anyway, this is, you can see, this is a clean tire, and it only has like one gigantic peak. That's the main chemical of the tire, and these are secondary chemicals. This is a treated tire. All of a sudden, we have a gazillion peaks over here. The list of chemicals in that particular one was that many, 20, 30,
So that-
some odd chemicals in that tire.
So you can see how you can just say, this is a clean one, this is your tire. What's in it?
And this is another example. There's the benchmark, that's an FT 200 tire. It has two predominant peaks in it. Now we have a whole bunch here and a brand new one over here. So you can sit there and, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. It's a visual thing, and those are just some of the examples. This is another, that's the clean one. I think that's most of them, but I just wanted to show you, kind of what you would look for. When it's clean, it's clean. That's clean. That's a benchmark, that's a clean tire, so it's clean. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what your report would look like. I'm sorry, it didn't translate well up there.
Some of the little pictures you see here at the bottom, at times there'll be like a little bit of something maybe on the graph.
Yeah.
We don't call that because it's not enough to give you the headache or really give a competitor unfair advantage. So we, we try not to call nothing that's just kind of bouncing around there. It's got to be something significant for y'all to stand behind and for us to stand behind and prove it for you.
Yeah, that's not really showing up good.
But their bench part differently. Bench part, I was just gonna ask you about the cleaning stuff.
The cleaning
Okay.
stuff.
All right, well,
Yeah, we'll go into that. Our cleaners, that's a popularly asked questions, or Purple Power, Simple Green, do things like that show up? Those things have plant derivative chemicals in them, and there is one little marker chemical that will show up, and I'll never just, if I just see that one chemical, it's called limonene. It's a plant derivative of like orange. It comes out of the peel, like oranges and lemons.
Citrus.
And that's a natural degreaser, and we'll never call that. I mean, if I saw just that one peak, shows up about 9 minutes, I'm gonna walk past it. Because it didn't give that tire any kind of advantage. And, I mean, there are some cleaners, I know we did some work for a company here in North Carolina, and they're developing a completely, supposedly totally green, and they actually brought it in. They cleaned a tire, and they brought a clean tire. They went and bought a clean tire, then they cleaned this tire, and they brought me both of the samples, and it's pristine. I mean, there's no carryover from cleaners.
I think it's called Race Clean. They got, let's clean this up right. I think they got a booth here.
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing the product anyway, but it was totally benign on our equipment.
But Purple
We couldn't
Power,
see any
Simple
peak
Green,
on that.
I mean, I had this question asked 8 years ago, I guess, when I started doing this. And I actually took benchmarks that we got from Hoosier and American Racer and just soaked them in the laboratory, just let them sit in Simple Green and Purple Power, just to see what would happen. And the rubber just sat there in it, and there was nothing. I mean, there's nothing. So that's
They took
kind of,
advantage.
yeah, that's kind of, and the next question we always get is contamination be picked up off the track. I generally don't see that. I've done races where I've done 10 samples to 40 samples. I do several races a year that they pull every car at the track, and no, it does not pick up off the
And
track.
you may have one bad car, and you got 3 or 4 that are clean, and you can pretty much say that's not going to be
I
picked up off the
generally,
track.
I've been doing tires for almost 8 years now. That's just a totally a misconception. So,
Because what happens in these soaks is there's usually compounds in there that will open up the pores of the rubber to allow other things to soak in deeper. Okay, just running across something in the track, first of all, you're going to have the centrifugal force of the wheels throwing it off. You're going to have the heat generated by the tires on the track. It's pretty much going to get off there real quick.
and if you hit a
So-
spot on the track, it's like winning the lottery. The tech man or you grew that exact spot that you hit on the track. I mean,
have you ever tested anything like the Enviromax or anything that some of the track prep people use?
I have
on that side
tested
of it?
some track preps, and a lot of them, they have glycerin and things in it, and that's just the oil the whole doesn't ever penetrate. Most of these things you see, like I just showed you, I mean, they have to sit and soak. They're doing them in a rotisserie, they're doing them with heat. I mean, this is a 2 or 3 week process to get that tire soft. It's not gonna happen from a track or a cleaner or anything like that. It takes a lot to get it to.
We recently had a tire. The official put his hand on the tire. He pulled his hand back, and it was completely black. It took him 2 weeks to get that off his
It
hand.
stayed there for 2 weeks.
Now, this stuff is not healthy, folks.
It's not healthy.
When your competitors are sitting in a garage and they got buckets of this stuff around, it is not healthy for you to breathe. Most of it is carcinogen or has a significant health risk due to EPA. Now, of course, it's like anything else. Some people their whole life, you know, I don't care if people smoke, don't bother me. If you enjoy it, do it. I don't smoke. But some people smoke their whole life, don't ever have a problem. Some people get sick from it, you don't ever know.
It's environmentally bad, it's bad for your health, and it's really bad. I mean, I've done a lot of talks and discussions with tire companies. I mean, it's really encroaching the rubber integrity of the tire, and they're just afraid they're gonna have a tire blow, send something into a stand, a car goes into a stand, kills somebody. Who's gonna be at fault? It's gonna be a track, it's gonna be a promoter, it's gonna be, they'll go after the tire company, and it's not gonna have been anybody's fault.
Except the person. who
Except
sucked
the
tire.
person that soaked the tire because they altered it from the state that it left the factory at. And that's why this has become so very important. And
Like Kim said, there's a soak. When you run it, that heat's generated on the track. The whole chemical composition
Of the
of
tire
changes
changes.
because the chemical reaction takes place when the heat gets generated on that tire.
This stuff gets, I've been doing, like I said, I've done fuels for 20 years, I've done tires for about 8 years. It gets more and more sophisticated because they're hiring scientists to beat anything I can find. So, you know, and they, I mean, and a lot of this stuff costs a lot of money. It's $200, $300, $400 a gallon, and it's, you know,
And we do research too. We just don't get them in like we're going over blogs. We're trying to find out what news out there. If something news out there we're trying to get a hold of, or we can test and see what's going on. So we're doing research on this constantly and working with guys like you that say, hey, there's something new out here, I can get you some. They'll send us a vial full or something.
yeah.
We're sucking in benchmarks and see how it affects the benchmarks and that type of thing.
And the other thing I do is if a tire is ever bad, I'm going to shoot it twice, sometimes 3 times before I pick up the call and ever hand you a headache. I mean, I'm going to be assured that I've shot it on my machine 2 or 3 times and it totally replicates before I ever pick up the phone and say, you have a problem. And then I'm going to say, where do you want me to go with this? So, you know.
Because what's important to us is that we give you good, defensible data. If for some reason it did go to court, we can go in and say, yeah, we reproduced this. There wasn't a blip on the machine. There wasn't an electrical impulse on the machine. It's got to be reproduced by us before we'll tell you about it.
And I've never really had one of these go to court. They've gone to appeals and different sorts of things like that, but nothing else. Do y'all have any questions?
I want to bring up one thing. We had about 2 years ago, this kid got caught. He had a real bad tire. I mean, it was smoking hot. His daddy had enough money to do about what he wanted to. And he got to talking about, I'm going to call the EPA to come to your track. You do not want the EPA to come to your track. They go to one track and they find contamination on one spot of your track, then they're coming to your track, then they're coming to your track, then they're coming to your track. That's how the EPA works. If they find it one place, they're going everywhere else. So that's something you never want to happen. A couple other things that I want to mention. It's like there were a couple of big calls made early in the year this year. Okay, Kim was looking at the graphs and she's just thinking, something's not quite right about this, but I can't figure it out. And she kept looking for about 3 days, and she finally zeroes in on this, because you can zero in on these peaks that come out on the board. She zeroed in on this one little peak. It came that close to being hidden from what we would typically see in a tire. And so they called it bad. Okay, another guy gets caught that way. I get a call randomly, this guy saying, can you test, I'm not going to tell you the compound, but can you test for this compound? Yeah, we can. And and as soon as he said that, I knew what compound we had found. It perked me up. I got to figure out who I'm talking to. Well, Kim went to another phone and pulled up the caller ID. It was the guy that makes these soaps. It was one of his underlings calling for him. He said, can y'all test for this? And I said, yeah, we can. And he said, how much do you charge? I said, well, it depends on what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. And so about 2 minutes later, the guy that owned the company called me back. He starts saying, I think somebody, he said, yeah, I make this stuff, but somebody has infringed on my patent. And so I'm like, okay. He says, I want to do this testing. He says, it's going to be big money for you. And I'm saying, I'm not going to do this. But I said, I'll think about it. I'll let him sit all day on it before I call him back. But the reason I don't do it and wouldn't do it for him is because I work for you guys. I'm not playing both ends to the middle. That's important, because if I do that, it hurts my credibility with you and anybody I go to. And then I want to be credible with you.
And we've also had racers that'll come and say, well, my tire was found, didn't match the benchmark at this track. Can I bring my tire in? I mean, we just really don't want to be doing that, because there is no way to assure that the tire he's bringing me is the tire that was sampled at that track. We really tried. I do not want to get anywhere near that. We only want to work for tracks, promoters, series. That's all we want to work for.
We're not doing both ends against them. We had a racer last year, pulled up, I didn't know him from Adam, pulled up tires in the back of his truck in our lab. He said, so-and-so's supposed to meet me over here. And I said, well, I'm not testing that tire for you. The only way I'll test that tire is if the series tells me to do it. And so we're waiting for this guy to show up. It's supposed to be there. Never comes. Ken says, I'm going to call him. He calls the guy. The guy says, I don't know anything about this. What's this guy doing over there? And he lives about 15 minutes from the labs he got over there. And we ended up testing the tire, but I only reported it to the series. I told the kid, I said, you're going to pay for it, but I'm reporting it to them before we do it. Because I'm just not going to do that. But the thing is, if somebody starts wanting to send something, like Kim said, we can't be sure you're comparing apples to apples. Now, another thing that will make a difference, if you send a tire in, 3 weeks later they want to send in, that tire's not going to be the same. Because as longer that tire sits, the more of that stuff's going to evaporate off the tire.
Because they're very volatile compounds, and that's why they're called volatiles. When they're exposed to air, they go away. So it's not going to be the same exact sample that you sent me 2 days after the race. It can change.
So when a racer calls me, I'm not rude to him. I just say, look, buddy, I'm not going to help your cause whatsoever. I said, don't waste your money, because first of all, I'm not going to do it for you. And if I did, I'd waste your money because you can't prove that's the same tire. So, and like I say, that's where it comes back to you guys and your personnel following proper procedure and getting everything sent to us properly, where they don't have a way to come back and say, well, Joe Schmo didn't sample that right, or whatever. And we're open here for questions. Anything y'all that's come up, y'all want to talk about, we're glad to talk to you.
How long did the samples, will they last in a container like that?
They last significantly longer. We have had, once they're sealed in this has a Teflon seal. Okay, nothing, this is EPA, nothing is supposed to be able to evaporate that Teflon seal on the inside of that.
But it still will, I mean, if it's a very volatile compound, it will change in a matter of a couple of weeks. So most of my series, they'll have a race on Saturday, and I'll get the samples either on Tuesday or Monday. I try to get them out the same week, but when I get really busy in the summer, which is crazy sometimes, it may not be that same week, but I try to get it as soon as I just kind of put everybody in order as they come in. And so we try to get them out, because a lot of people hold the money until they get the test results. So I know it's a time-sensitive thing. So we try to get that out as soon as we possibly can. But it's best to get those samples just, as soon as we possibly can, to make sure we're testing what was at that track. That's really, really important.
We got a sample one time, it came in a mason jar. It was, a piece about that big. When I opened it, we had to trim it off to extract it. Opened the jar, it knocked my head off.
Yeah.
I put the top back, I took it outside to cut it off. Our building smelled the rest of the day. Okay, we set it aside. About 4 months later, I said, I wonder how this smells. Still knocked my head off. That guy didn't do nothing to this tire. So, but it was probably the worst tire we had ever had. It was just, someone will die sticking around that stuff. Yes, sir.
I was noticing the general tire scan and advanced scan.
Mhm.
The general tire scan, that'll tell you whether the tires reaches the base mark or not.
Yeah, because that's what we're showing
Really,
here.
what we're doing is, it goes, it's one shot, okay? I put it on the machine, I shoot it. Just the regular scan just tells you, does it conform, does it not? If you come and say, I want to know every chemical, say I hand you a tire like this one that has, 30 chemicals in it, and you want to know every one, I have to go peak by peak by peak, clicking on that, identifying that. I think this one took me 5 hours to do. So I'm going to charge you a little bit more for that.
I understand that. My question was, is it really necessary to prove the validity of the test?
It just depends on what you want to do. We never do that unless you direct us to do it.
And that goes back to really how you set your rules. If you just have your rules saying, I'm going to send it to the lab, if they say it conforms or it doesn't, end of story, that's what we'll do. But I have a lot of people who want the detailed scan, who want to be able to say, this is all the stuff that was in this tire, and I'm not charging you extra for that. The original scan was like $75 this year. We're having to go about $5 next year. And the advanced scan is $230, but I'm not charging you $75 and $230. I'm charging you $230 if I do
It'll be
the
inclusive. We're not going to add another.
Yeah, we're not charging, because we shot it
$235
on the same
next year.
machine, so we're using the same information.
And we've had people take stuff to other labs, and they can analyze it and say, yeah, it had something in it. But most of these labs don't work with racers, don't understand racing, how things work. It's just we're taking a material, extracting it, and running it. And a lot of it has to do with how the lab's machines are set up. We have set ours up specifically for racing analysis. A lot of these other labs, that racing is our biggest business. Okay, a lot of the other labs, they got other things that's not worth their money to set their machine up like we do ours. They got good equipment, they got good people that know what they're doing, but they make their money somewhere else. And that's why we can see more stuff on our machine if they did. Now, if I was making a lot more money on something else, I probably wouldn't have our machine set up this way. And another question, people, it's come to us a couple times, another lab will say, that lab can't give you that good of analysis for paying what you pay. Because what we do, most people charge $400 to $600 to do. But you're not going to send me a sample every week if I'm charging you $600 for the sample. So that's why we got a machine sitting there. We can make $80 a shot on it, or we can make nothing on it. So that's how we try to keep it that way, to keep it affordable for you guys. Because most y'all can't afford to send 4 tires in at $400 a piece. So there goes your profit down right there. So that we try to keep it affordable because racing is our business. But we got to stay, in a reasonable price range for you guys.
Do I have any more questions?
I don't have any questions, but I got some comments. If you're sending lab tests off, and you're not sending them to these people, I'm not trying to be bold or nothing, but these are really the only ones you need to deal with. I mean, they've been there, they've worked with racers, they've worked with tire companies more than anybody else the last 8 years, and these people have been beat down, have been brought up, beat down, they've been through the bumps of the road is what I'm getting at, and they got the most experience, the most results. So they're the ones, if you're going to do it, they're the ones you need to deal with. Second of all, if you're going to take a sample, send it off. Because don't take samples and then just take them home, put them in the counter or throw them away on the way down the road. If you're going to do it, then do it. Because we've got a lot of people out there that take samples and they don't send them off. And the next thing you know, the guy says, well, my stuff passed because they think you sent it off, and you really did. So that's another thing. And the third thing is, you're wasting your time with them snippers. I wouldn't even fool them.
In the race point, we did a test this year at another racetrack. We took a guy that's very, very credible in the industry, a racer. We treated a tire on a racetrack. We did an outside, we rolled outside. We just lifted the tire, we put it on the inside. We took a clean tire. We took another clean tire, ran it on the same racetrack, like your EnviroMax example, same racetrack, did heat cycles on all of them. I sent them to Kim, didn't tell her anything. And she called back in a couple of days, she said, I thought you had like a challenge here, this is easy. This was the undetectable, she can't be, everybody's beating all these major tools, and it was a joke. It was a joke, which I was sold before then, I was really sold after that.
Well, and you'll find, I will tell you, the first call you ever make is going to be a headache, isn't that right?
All right.
It'll be a big headache, but it will help your car count because people will know, I'm going to get a fair shot here. And I've seen, I don't know how many series their car count go up after calls are made.
Well, like I said, we called probably 30 people in Carolina Speedway, and we called one in 2013. And that was the last race we ran from a guy that been this year.
And this has been an eventful year, so.
It has been.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've sent off every sample I took, but I will tell you that I do send samples from every race. And sometimes you might say, well, who do you check? Well, if you come to race with us, I'm going to check the guy fast time, and I'm going to check the winner. Those two are automatic. So if you ain't planning on doing one of those two things, you probably don't need me to come in. But those are the two that we're mainly going to check. Other things that I look for is somebody sets fast time by 3 or 4 tenths. If there's a big window there in qualifying, or if somebody starts 20th, drives all the way to second, if somebody starts dead last, drives into the top 5. If you got one car in the field that's moving more than the rest of them, then that's a good one to check. You know what I mean? Just look for the obvious, the red lights that come on. If you got somebody that really stands out for the night, chances are he just got a good car and done a good job at night, but there is also that chance that he's got something nobody else has.
On that note, Ray, do you have any problem or get a complaint that that wasn't random, that you were picking on them? Not that that matters, I'm not one that feels
No,
that, but
I
I've
mean,
heard that argument.
I tell them in the driver's meeting that, hey, you know, if you stand out tonight, which I hope you do, and it makes their run more rewarding to them and their sponsors when they say, hey, I did start last and run the second,
And I was clean.
and I was clean. You know what I mean? So really, you're just boosting their ego too. And, but generally, what I do is somebody stands out, or I let the winner pick somebody. So say, pick somebody in the field, not necessarily a name, but a position. Because most time the guy wins don't know the run order.
Right.
So he may pick 8 or 10 or 12 or something, and you just go get that guy.
Ray, we appreciate those kind of words. Another thing, when we first got into this, most of the rules stated the tire cannot be chemically altered. Okay, we went from, that's when we started reporting matches or does not match the benchmark, because we found out a tire can be chemically altered, but like the ones we're telling you about, the actual chemical reaction takes place in the heat of the tire. We can't tell you what made that take place because chemicals that cause that are gone and some created a new chemical. So, and two, realistically, if you don't have a benchmark to compare it to, you don't have a whole lot to say to people. You know, we learned a lot in doing this through the years. And so, like I said, does not conform to benchmark terminology tends to work better than not chemically altered.
But I will tell you, the day codes are really important if you do decide to do any tire sampling. Write the day code down, because if you ever have a question, I can go to the tire company and say, this is the day code. Do I have the right benchmark? Has there been some change? And they can confirm that for me, and that's very important.
Well, and like I said, what is important is that we give you good data. And we have been able to reverse decisions when we got additional benchmarks. We do not mind saying, no, we made a mistake on the first one. We really didn't make a mistake. We just got got additional information from the tire company to prove the guy right.
I mean, I just want to be as fair as I can to everybody.
And that's our job as promoters, is to be proactive with these tire companies and make sure they have the right data, because they don't know. So we send stuff in, we need to be proactive to make sure that everybody knows what the tire is.
But fortunately, we got people at Usher we can talk to, American Racing we can talk to, and all that that are willing to work with us to help us do this. And we hope it benefits you guys and the sport in general in what we do. Kelly?
The thing about the tire companies, they're gonna be really, really cooperative with these guys.
They have been.
Shannon
very
Rush told me,
cooperative.
and they alluded to it earlier about the lawsuit aspect of it. If they aren't working to make sure that that stuff's not being brought into their, introduced to those tires, they're gonna have more difficulty facing a lawsuit later on for somebody who blows a tire and goes into the grandstands and sues everybody, including the tire. So they're gonna be really proactive and helpful to those guys.
We're gonna have to wrap this up. We're late. But the two things I was most interested in as far as, being an attendee here is the tire stuff and the social media stuff. And it's not just the social media stuff. It's the how to drive a youth car racetrack. And Terry has a phenomenal presentation here. And for all you guys, we're a little bit late for lunch, so we'll break about 12:15 or so to lunch and be back. Terry's gonna show you what she's got real quick.
I do have some vials. If anybody needs some or want to take some, I got about 5 boxes of them here. Welcome to do it. Also, if you want to discuss anything further with us, our information's in the packets. Feel free to call. We'll talk to you all day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.